Hi there, and welcome to the latest edition of the Gersnet Weekly Podcast. Excuse me. Good start to proceedings. The Independent Rangers Podcast, which is brought to you by fans for fans, and where the content is absolutely free. It is episode 180 of the flagship show. I'm your host, Colin Armstrong, and I'm having a mare. Excuse me. As I say every week, guys, it's not just the pod that we have here at Gersnet. We've got the website, articles, social media. There's a history archive on the website and obviously the forums as well, so get yourself on that. Deary me. And also, we would ask you to subscribe, even though it's a coffin fit tonight. If you enjoy what we're doing here at Gersnet, we would ask you to subscribe, put the word out there in social media, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We've got over 5,000 subscribers at the moment. So we're going to have a wee look at the Rangers game today, and I've been joined by two professionals tonight, which makes my coffin fit at the start there even more amateurish. We're joined by Chris Jack from the Glasgow Times and Joshua Barrie from the Rangers Review. Chris, I'll come to you first. How you doing? You okay?
Not bad. However, had a COVID test live on your call. I think you better go and do it.
I might need to go there. It was actually something went down the road the wrong way, and it's still so try and fluff it out the new until I get rid of it.
Apart from my concern over you, well-being, all is well. Two drop points at the unfortunately as well, but I'm sure we'll come on to talk about that and focus on far more important matters on Thursday evening.
Yeah, a big night coming up. We'll obviously talk about that as well. And Joshua, or Josh, I know you've been on Sky and all that, and you know you're the sort of face of the Rangers support at the moment. But surely being on the Gersnet podcast, that's peak. That's you reached the peak.
Thanks, mate. Absolutely. No, great to be on. Thanks for having me. And same as Chris. I mean, kind of a strange game today, because I think, in a way, within the last month, there's optimism, given how the last two turns have played out. But it's frustration because I think that game today kind of epitomises the season. So, looking forward to chatting about it some more.
Yeah. I mean, I'll come back to you, Chris, on the sort of first point. I mean, I thought it was an excellent performance today when I thought we were really unlucky not to win the game. When you consider, the injury situation, especially, no real sort of out-and-out striker, recognised striker. We're managing this game between two semi-final ties, European semi-final ties. I mean, there was a lot of talk yesterday. I don't know if you've seen all the sort of memes of like Rangers teams feel like 50 years ago, this is my team for tomorrow and all that kind of thing. Real talk that we would rest players and not really go for it. Slightly stronger team than expected. But given everything that we're currently going through at the moment, a really, really top performance and really unlucky not to win it. I thought we deserved to win it.
I think the manager deserves a lot of credit for being as strong and being as bold with that team selection. If Rangers had lost by a couple today, which could easily have happened given position that Celtic are in, I think if we'd lost by a couple, he'd put out a really strong team. People would have been saying, why has he done that? He's jeopardised Thursday. I think the result and the performance almost justified his bravery and his selection. In terms of the performance, I think he got almost as much as he could have hoped for. In terms of the result, as we've all said, I think there was that wee bit more there for us. I think the 3 points were there to be won. You look at the performance, especially in the second half, the chances, obviously Sakala hitting the post will be the main one. I think that game was there for Rangers to win today. And I think it says quite a lot. At the start of the week, everybody was writing off the front game. Nobody was really fussed. If this wasn't the game that people were focused on, no real disappointment that we haven't won it. I think that says a lot, but just about how the game went, and two, the performance that the guys actually turned in. I think they do deserve a lot of credit for it.
Joshua, I mean, I was looking at some of the match stats when I was pulling together the agenda. Possession 49%. I thought somebody was ripping the piss for that. Actually, I thought that can't be right. We must have had more than 49% possession. Total shots 14, shots on target 5, 73% of passes completed, 7 corners. We reduced Celtic to 1 shot on target, and that was our goal. I mean, when you look at those stats, I mean, again, how we didn't win the game it almost feels criminal, but I think it points to the fact that we really were suffering. Without that recognised striker, that when it came to that final third, to me, that's where Rangers had their problems today.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you think of moments in the first half where Barisic takes the ball off the toes of Kent. There was a moment where Tav kind of went into the box and him and Kent were mixed up. And I think what games against Celtic have shown is that Van Bronckhorst needs quite a specific type of player in that midfield and those forward areas. I just don't think the decision making of the players that are there at the moment has been that good. So your Kents and the Rebos and Sakala, there was that moment with the 3v2 in the first half where he's got the visors on and he just doesn't know what's happening around him. And I was speaking to someone about this after the semi-final, and they were saying, you do think when he gets players that perhaps are more suited to the style of football, because you do forget that in the January window he only really brought in 2 players that were going to start in Ahmad and Ramsey, and neither's really kind of worked out, I guess, with Ramsey did for a point. He's been injured. So this is a squad that was built for a kind of different style of football, especially defensively. You look at him again going for that really aggressive man-for-man approach today. It's worked really well in different ways against Celtic over the past month. Compared to Steven Gerrard's nice and compact 4-3-3, it's very different. So I agree with Chris. I think you need to give him a lot of credit. But for me, again, the difference is that, Jota, the chance that he scores in the first half compared to the one that Kent misses, very similar opportunities, very similar moments. But I think what Rangers did really well, and I think, again, you have to give the manager credit for this, what they did so badly in the 3-0 defeat in February was kind of grant Celtic control. And I think what Celtic are good at is those little patterns on the outside, the rotations that causes the goal, the lead up to the goal. But Rangers in the last 2 games, I think, have really not granted them that control. They've been aggressive. And I think they've asked a lot of questions of them. And at times, I don't think Celtic had the sufficient answers for it. So, I think that the difference was that Celtic had that in the first half. They had that attacking incision in the final third. Rangers didn't have that, but Sakala provided, playing from his favourite left side for a moment, that in the second half, and that ultimately is what gets Rangers the point.
Yeah, I would agree with that. 3 changes today, Chris, and again, it was, I think, going back to what I was sort of saying earlier on, we were all waiting to see what team Gio was going to go with. There was all these rumours about, he was going to start a weakened team, he was going to rest players, focusing on Thursday night. 3 changes, a far stronger team than I think most of us predicted. So Stephen Davis came in, Arfield in, Sakala in, came in for Glenn Kamara, Ryan Jack, Scott Wright. Aribo again, as per sort of Thursday night in the first leg against RB Leipzig, asked to sort of play that number 9 role. So in terms of the team, were you a bit surprised at how strong it was?
Potentially, but I think when you actually look at the bench, you see he didn't really have that many options. You think of Helander out, Balogun out, Ramsey obviously out, Morelos out, Roof out. If those guys had been available, it gives obviously a lot more options to actually choose from. The fact that handful of guys aren't available, by the time you then get down to the bench, in effect, there's not many guys on the bench. Ryan Jack aside, you would say definitely go and start them. I think it had been the wrong call to start Jack, considering how important he'll be on Thursday night. And you're then looking at Lowry, it'd been a big call to start him. You're looking at a Charlie McCann, it's a really big call to start him. Itten so far out the pitch or not good enough. Sands, you're not going to want to pitch him in. Diallo, we've already seen what happened to him at Parkhead already. He didn't actually have that many options or many guys chapping on the door to say, start me, I've earned it. So I think he got the team. I think he got the team right. Slightly surprised at how strong it was, but I think the payoff to that would have been if he'd gone much weaker and even just made a couple of more changes, it would have looked a bit second string and a bit B team like, and it could have ended badly for him. And as much as today wasn't the most important game of the season or the most important game of the week, Gio couldn't afford a 4-0 defeat, considering he already had a 3-0 defeat at Parkhead just a couple of months ago. He had to get a performance and a result, and the safest way to ensure that happened was to pick the side that he picked.
Is there also a wee aspect here, and I kind of got that sense when I seen the team that Gio still fancies it in terms of, if he got the 3 points today, I think he thought that there was maybe still a wee chance of winning that league.
It's something he did mention it last week in his press stuff, and even post-match today, he was mentioning it, saying we also had to win to get the gap to 3. I think his phrase was made it more difficult, or it is more difficult. I think after that he probably realises like Celtic aren't going to drop the points. Aren't going to drop the points required. I all but gave up on it last weekend. As soon as they beat Ross County, I thought that was it. That was it done. been very interesting if they had dropped something up at Ross County, just how today would have panned. It would have put a completely different complexion on that game, and Rangers would have rightly really fancied a chance just to put a wee bit of pressure on a Celtic squad that haven't had to see out a title. As it is, they've obviously won at Ibrox and they will go and see it out. And I think that's just one in a number of frustrations for Rangers this season. They've not been able to put, even when they've now been trailing for the last couple of months, not been able to put the sustained pressure on a Celtic squad that we don't know how to actually handle it.
Joshua, I mean, in terms of the game itself, I mean, I thought we started really well. I thought we dominated the middle of the park. I thought John Lundstrom again was instrumental in that. We looked settled, we looked composed. And the crowd, once you got to sort of 10, 15 minutes, you could sense that the crowd was starting to get quiet. Kent had a couple of chances, one that he arguably, should have or could have scored. And in early doors, you're like, we look comfortable here. There's always this thing going to Celtic Park, especially now with the sort of situation with the away support. There's a very, very limited amount of away supporters in there. So it always feels like you're going to the Lions Den a wee bit when you go there now. But, that early stage, I thought, no, we're pretty composed here and we look good.
Yeah, I think you could tell that with the crowd's expectation that they did expect that kind of goal within the early minutes and kind of overwhelm Rangers, as was the case in February. But I think one of the biggest positives of Van Bronckhorst's time at the club so far, and he said this in the press conferences, normally in between or after one of the European games, is that once he's seen a kind of opposition in the flesh, he has a better idea about how to beat them. And that might, sound like quite an obvious thing, but I think with the emphasis on analysis these days and how much work goes into that, into preparing the players, you only have to look at goal kicks on both sides of the pitch today to see how much emphasis is going into the small details of the game. But I think what Van Bronckhorst is showing is that he is really good at adapting to the opposition's weaknesses and tailoring his side's approach to that. So if you look at the last game, when obviously, he changed his midfield structure, it's been the Jack and Lundstrom midfield pair after that 3-0 defeat. On that day, Alan McGregor kicked long out of panic. I think today what he did well, the pass completion rate was, I think, 72-3%, Colin, but I don't think that was actually a concern, because what Rangers were doing was, without McLaughlin to play through the press, they would kind of just kick him over, Celtic. And that's something, I think Guardiola first made that famous when he played Javi Martinez, who was a centre-half up top against Borussia Dortmund, because Dortmund's press was so effective and it was such a big part of their game. He took it out and it was quite ultimately a simple but effective trick. And I thought, well, Rangers didn't just kick it long. What they did well was, you've seen a lot of switches of play from Lundstrom. You've seen a lot of Kent out wide to just try and stretch the Celtic defence. You see that when Barisic takes the ball off Kent's toes. That's from a kind of wide ball out to Kent. And I think you're right. I think in the middle of the pitch, Davies and Lundstrom completely dominated that. I think Lundstrom again got the better of Hatate, who I don't think had a great game. McGregor, I think, was pretty quiet as well, and that's compliment to Lundstrom. And on Lundstrom, obviously on Thursday night, he's playing in the back of a back three, and doing it very successfully. And in the first half an hour of that game, he's running beyond, playing a box-to-box role. I think he's one of the players you really need to build the next 2-3 years around of this Rangers squad, because I just think he's been brilliant, so dynamic, so dependable on the ball, and seeing both sides of his game over these 2 days, I think is a reflection of that.
Yeah, and how much longer do you think McGregor's going to wear that face mask, by the way?
Well, I originally only thought it was for the kind of first game, but he's so important to the way Celtic play, and I think what Rangers have done well in recent games is kind of keep him quiet in games. And today, I think he was pretty quiet, which is again testament to the midfield. But mate, will be interesting to see if he's still got on after the summer.
Thank you. I think it's a gimmick now, I must admit, but that's just me. That's just me being a cynic, and obviously coming from the other side of the fence as well. Chris, given that we'd started so well, it made it really frustrating. After 21 minutes, Celtic take the lead. Connor Goldson doesn't really, close down Maeda to cut out the cross. But yet again, we saw this in February. We Borna, completely unaware of the man behind him. When you see the replay, he knows he's there. He clocks him, he knows him, and then he ball watches and doesn't. I don't think he goes for it with the right foot, and he goes for it in a way that doesn't make sure that, Jota comes in and nips in front of him. Really sort of naive defending and frustrating. I did notice when the ball was in the net and, they're all celebrating, Alan McGregor sort of pointing at Borna as if, again, you've done it to me again. So really, really disappointing. And I felt for a few minutes after that, Borna looked a bit panicked.
I just wonder what's going through. As you say, Colin, he knows he's there. I think if you watch the replay from the main stand side, you can see he has a wee glance. He must know that the player's there. What goes through his head for that second, 2 seconds, to suddenly switch off and think he's not there? I don't need to worry about him. For a guy so experienced, that's played at such a high level, that's been at the club, been in the Old Firm games, he knows what these games are like. He must know he can't afford to make silly mistakes like that, and to do it a couple of months after making a really costly one just is really, really poor. He has come on to something resembling not quite his best self. I think in the last few weeks he has been better. But it just looks still a guy that's so fragile in terms of his confidence. When he's on it, he can be really effective in such a great part of the side. He makes a mistake, and every time he makes a mistake, you just wonder, is this going to be him for the rest of the game? Is that him shot like it was at Parkhead the last time? I thought he recovered from it okay. Didn't have a brilliant game. I thought the second half he was better. The only hope is it's not knocked him too much for Thursday night. If he does start, he can't be. Rangers simply can't afford to be losing goals like that, and they can't afford experienced players to be switching off in that manner.
No, I mean, Josh, and I think it's bemusing when it comes to Borna, because he has reached such a high level in terms of his level of performance, and it seems to me that one wee thing, especially in big games like that, when there's a big atmosphere, I genuinely feared from at one point. I agree with Chris. I think he did recover quite well eventually, but there was that 10-15 minute spell, especially in the first half, where he thought, he's gone again. He's totally gone again, but he did recover a wee bit better this time. But it's bemusing that he can look peerless at times, and just like he's a top player. And then other times, and it just seems to be one incident, and all of a sudden his confidence just goes.
Yeah, well, there was the pass back to him, I think, just after the goal where he got pressed right away and he lost the ball, and you think, oh no, you're right, it's going to happen again. On the goal, I don't know. I think you've just got to surely get your body in front of that and take the hit. But he goes at it with his left foot, which allows Jota in. So poor goal to concede. I think he did recover relatively well. He's such a frustrating player in many ways, because you look at that performance against Braga, and actually the best moment of the game from his point of view was the goal that was overturned by VAR, but that cross into Kemar Roof, I think it was on about 8 minutes. And I think when Barisic is in that type of form and he gets into a crossing position, and you've seen this when Rangers open the scoring after inside 2 minutes, there's a collective gasp and a kind of, the seats hitting back on one another. It is normally reserved for someone who takes a long range shot, that expectation that comes with Barisic crossing, because his delivery is so good that so often it returns a positive result. And when you have that, I was speaking to someone this week about what to do with him in the summer, because you're not going to get much money for him. When he's good, he's so good. When he's not good, and you have this interesting dilemma at left back, where Bassey is such a valuable asset inside the pitch at points because of his physicality. Again, today you've seen that at points as well. And you see with the cup semi-final, his energy getting around the outside on the overlap, and his delivery has improved a lot. That's really useful as well. Do you keep them both there and just rotate and hope that both come good at certain times? I don't know, but I think Barisic, when he's on form, his delivery is just such a valuable asset in that team. And it was almost forgotten about because he was so bad in that February game. Kind of in March and April, that when he came back into the side, I think it was St Mirren, and he played a couple of really nice balls down the side as well for Roof, and you think, you forget how much of a weapon it is to have a player with that quality in that area of the pitch, that sometimes is where you get the most time with the ball, especially when you're trying to break down an opponent. So I think he did recover much better this time, and he's always going to have that now. He's 29 now, he's an experienced player, as you guys have said, and I think that's maybe arguably the reason that he's not went and played at a higher level, because he does have that in his game where he can be so reliable at some moments, and other moments he can just look like a rabbit in the headlights, as he did just after you concede that goal. Yeah, and to me, it's all based around confidence. It just seems to be one wee prick in the bubble of his confidence, and boom, it goes. Chris, going into the second half again, like the first half, I thought we started well.
Gio's made the subs fairly early on. He's brought Wright on for Aribo. He's brought Ryan Jack on for Steve Davis. I was a wee bit surprised that Davis went off, I must admit. Round about the 63-minute mark, I think Celtic had a wee bit of joy. I think Maeda had the chance over the bar, although I think he was offside. They had a couple of chances. But I thought, again, Rangers started pretty well. But I thought that the changes worked, almost instantly, because, Wright was involved with the goal. So, it's something I've seen a lot of debate on. And as the subs were made, I was looking at social media and loads of people commenting, why he's taking him off. But you'd have to say that they're working. And I'm starting to get a sort of viewpoint when it comes to Gio that a lot of the times I don't understand these subs. Is that a good thing? Is he maybe seeing things that the rest of us aren't seeing, and it's working because, it worked. As I said, Wright was involved with the goal. I thought we picked up after those subs came on. So you would have to say he got the substitutions right.
I think so. And as I mentioned earlier on, he didn't have that many options. So when you only have limited options, it was important that he made the right calls with them. If he'd gone Diallo instead of Wright, that would have been the wrong call. If he'd gone Sands rather than Jack, that would have been the wrong call. It's not that hard. If you said to people, look, he's going to make 2 switches, that's the options, I think people would have gone for those ones. But it was important that he made the right changes and also made them at the right time, having started the second half as well. The momentum was starting to build with Rangers, and there was a feeling that there may actually be something in this game for us. They had to go and take it. They had to capitalise on that period. The only frustrating thing will be for them that once they then did capitalise on that period, they couldn't go and do it again. I thought they finished well. I thought the fitness level in the back of Thursday night were really impressive once again. This team's got a real habit now of being able to dig deep and see through. You think the European games in the semi-final to then put in that shift after Leipzig, it's really impressive stuff for guys that are having to go to the well time after time. So I think the manager deserves a bit of credit for, as you say, getting his subs right, and the players and the staff have also been doing something right just to get that recovery on point over the last few weeks to allow them to finish games as strongly as they are doing.
On that, Chris, do you think something's changed? Because this is a team whose character's been questioned. We were questioning it just a month ago, when we lost that game against Celtic at Ibrox. But in the remaining fixtures in April, they showed character in spades, especially that period. We had the extra time against Braga, then the extra time against Celtic in the Cup semi-final. The fitness levels as well. And it seems to me that there just seems to be that there is an element, a stronger element of character within this team being revealed. And I also get the sense that the players are starting to click onto what Gio's trying to do. There just seems to seem a better feel about the place at the moment in terms of, I felt around about February, March time, there was a bit of a disconnect between the manager and these players. I felt whatever he was trying to get across, it wasn't landing. It's not felt like that in April.
I think the support probably had that feeling as well. I know Gio was only also a couple of months in at that stage, but you were seeing a bit of doubt over his position and how basically how good he was going to be in the long term. People were saying, is this guy going to be the manager that's going to deliver us our next title? It's amazing what a couple of results can do. Also, the game at Hampden was huge. The European results have been huge, and as well as bringing a bit of confidence back into the squad, it has brought him a bit of confidence from the support. I think they're now seeing what he's doing. The players are seeing what he's doing, and it's probably just an unfortunate aspect of when Gio actually came in, or coming in November, had to hit the ground running, didn't really do it, had to then pick up from the January break. Obviously hasn't done it. I think now the last couple of weeks they have bought him that bit of time, they bought him a bit of breathing space, and people are now willing to give him a chance to go and build a squad in the summer. Let's go and see what he can do in the transfer market, and give him a pre-season to really put his stamp on the squad and on the team, and to see what he can do going forward.
Josh, we have to talk about the man from Zambia, the hero of the day. As you said earlier on, he had a bit of a, we've seen what Fashion Sakala's capable of in the game today. You've seen the frustrating side of him. I thought you made a good point earlier on when he had that 3 against 2. He just had the blinkers on and went down the wrong road when he had other options. But in the second half, I thought his decision making was a lot better. I thought he caused Celtic a lot of problems. obviously got his goal. I thought he took it really well. Really nice move. A bit of give and go between Arfield and Wright. Kent's involved. They get the overload, bang. And one thing I do like about Sakala, I've said this before on the show, I'm not comparing him to McCoist in terms of goal scoring and all that kind of thing. One thing I will say that I think Sakala's got that's similar to McCoist is he keeps coming back, and he obviously plays the game with a smile on his face. And I just look at him and think, yeah, he can be frustrating. He has these moments where, as you pointed out earlier on, his decision making can be poor. But he seems to be someone that's prepared to learn, prepared to work, and keeps going. And I think you saw that today. The amount of people I was seeing again on Twitter saying, get Sakala off, get Scott Arfield off. But Sakala's name is coming up time and again. It's not working, get him off. But he keeps going and he gets his goal. And he could have got the winner with that one he hit off the post.
Yeah, I mean, I think his first game was that Real Madrid friendly. And I remember after Steven Gerrard, how kind of glowingly spoke about him on Rangers TV about his willingness to learn. And Gerrard obviously picked his moments when to praise players, and that always stuck out to me as quite a distinctive moment of him trying to say, look, this is the type of player we've got here. And Gerrard was obviously very keen on how willing he was to learn. I think all of Sakala's best moments have come off the left wing. The only real notable moment that sticks out in my head aside from that was his performance at Tynecastle, where he assists or gets the ball back from Morelos for what would have been the first goal in that 2-0 win. But again, if you go back to Motherwell last week in the first half, I thought apart from that one moment where Ahmad has that chance, Sakala looked pretty ineffective, and that's because he's taken the ball into feet. He's taken it with a defender at his back, and I think that takes away the best assets and the best parts of his game, which is running directly on the left side, because he can go round the left, as we've seen with his goal today. It's left-footed, it's into the bottom corner, and it's a really good finish. But those outside to in runs I think he makes are so effective, and what he gives you as a wide forward is goals, and that's I think really valuable in the Scottish Premiership. We've seen last season, I know Roof is a different player. He was playing from that right side and he was guaranteeing you a lot of goals in those forward areas. And when Rangers went through a little bit of a sticky patch a couple of months ago and they had Kent, Morelos and Arfield as their front three, that's never for me going to be a front three that has enough goals domestically to go and win you a Premiership. They might go and win 4-2 against Dortmund away, but I think Morelos, the most goals he's ever scored in a season domestically has been 17. You need to put goals in and around him. That's what Rangers did well last season. So I think with Sakala, he's in Scotland because he's got limitations to his game. I think every player that's playing at our level and is not playing at the top level will have that. But he has really good parts to his game as well, which you've seen in that second half. And as you say, Colin, in games, he often has those moments where you think, like Motherwell last week, what is he doing? How is he doing something that's so simple? And how is he doing it to, such a bad degree? And then he goes and changes the game as he did against Motherwell last week. But I think what the main takeaway is, you need to play him from that zone, because when he can run inside and create danger from there, he's so hard to stop. And he runs at the hearts of defences. He's more direct than Kent. He's different to Kent. But yeah, I think that was a difference maker, and I don't think it's any coincidence it comes from the left-hand side rather than the right.
Yeah, I also think he had a good heady chance today that I thought he should have done better with. But he offers that as well. He scored a few headers and stuff as well. And I just think the thing that gets me with him is his willingness to learn. It seems to me that he's obviously very popular amongst his teammates. I think he's obviously a good trainer. You just get a right positive vibe, and I always think with players like that, those are the ones that there's a better chance of them improving because they're so willing to learn. Chris, I would say after the equaliser, that's when Rangers probably had their best sustained period in the match. We were chatting on the door so often. Arfield had a chance. John Hart had a good save. I thought from the rebound from that, I thought Ryan Jack could have maybe done better with the shot that came at him. Connor Golson's had that shot over the bar. Sakala's chances. We really were chatting on the door. We were getting in behind them again and again. John Hart nearly gifted us a goal with that pass back that he sort of farted a bit with. And at that period, we were really chapping on the door. But it also felt that it was obvious that the lack of an out-and-out striker was the main issue. You kind of got the feeling if we had a Morelos, if we had a Roof, we might have just got that goal and that got us a win.
I don't think it's any great slight on the guys that missed those chances, but you didn't really expect them to score them. Now, Ryan Jacks has scored a couple of great goals in his time. He's not a natural finisher. Sakala, as I've just discussed, he's erratic, even though he did take his first really well. I had no real faith in him. He was going to go and strike the second one away. It wasn't a massive surprise that it came back off the post. The lack of a striker, as you say, Colin, it has just come back to cost us in the end. The lack of someone you can rely on to go and put the ball in the back of the net. That's sort of circumstance. There's nothing we can do about it. But I think that did ultimately cost Rangers today. They are just that wee bit. They're just that wee bit short when Roofe and Morelos aren't there, and that's the main fear that I've got heading into the second game on Thursdays. As well as they can play, as impressive as they can be when they're at it, as they're MD in the team, you could say he's going to go and score for us tonight. If Morelos was in that team on Thursday night, he's fancy to go and get a goal. If Roofe doesn't play on Thursday, I think we're toiling, unfortunately.
Josh, I mean, in terms of retaining the title, you would say that a draw is probably not enough. So Celtic are 6 points clear, 3 games to go. You are looking for a bit of a collapse now in terms of giving us a chance. But I mean, taking the positives, one, the European stuff's been good, and we'll come on and talk about Thursday shortly. But, I think there's a lot of noise about, well, that's us. We've handed the Champions League cash over to Celtic. I think we need to remember that there's still 2 opportunities left for us to qualify for the Champions League. One is obviously via the Europa League, and I still think we've got a great chance. I know we've got issues in terms of the striking department. I would still even then think, a full house at Ibrox on Thursday would give us a chance. And if we don't qualify that way, then we've got the opportunity next season to qualify through the qualifying rounds. And I believe we're seeded now because of the situation with the Ukraine teams and all that kind of thing. So even although, and again, we'll come on and discuss some of the frustrations about this season and how it's not quite went to plan, even although it doesn't look like we're going to win the title, we still have opportunities to claim that Champions League cash.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with both of you. I think Chris is right. You look at that game against Braga, and even with Roofe, Rangers struggled to finish chances. And eventually it is Roofe who we had the ball in the net 3 times, didn't he? But it's him that kind of makes that movement. And if you watch that go back, I think it's a tap in, but the way he gets across his man, that kind of little dart, you compare that against someone like Ryan Jack today, who's not a natural finisher. Again, that's not a slight on him, but this is why when Pep Guardiola goes and plays without a recognised striker, it's such a big deal, because obviously, they're quite handy for providing goals. But then also, as you say, Colin, when you get to this stage, why not? I mean, and Ibrox in the last 3 rounds has been, I think it's played such a big part in the outcome of the game. Rangers have scored early, and I think all the games are certainly before the opposition. The atmospheres just kind of went up and up. I thought after Dortmund can't get better. And then, that Red Star first half was just absolutely mental. And then Braga, you have kind of the build-up and the release and the recovery in game from the team, which I think it was an important step for their character. On the season as a whole, I mean, I think just broadly, the board banked on kind of continuity from last season. They were 25 points ahead. There wasn't much squad turnover. They kept key personnel. Thought obviously they had the manager in place. They probably didn't expect Celtic to pick up as many points domestically as they did. And, we can speak about whether we think Rangers or Celtic are a better team, but Celtic are 28 games unbeaten. They are a good team, and they have displayed a consistency that's taken them 6 points ahead of Rangers. But I think there's that element of it. There's not been continuity in terms of where Rangers were last season compared to Celtic. But also you look at, something I've spoke about. I feel like I've spoken about it to death, but the goal contributions of people like Roofe and Hagi, I know neither of them were maybe a first name in the team sheet last season, but between them, I think it's 34 goals and assists they had last season. This season, it's about 10. And Roofe's presence in particular in that front 3 led to a real kind of overperformance in terms of Rangers' expected goals. I think they were 18 over their expected goals last season. Al McGregor also saved something like 7-8 goals above average. That's kind of reverted to the mean this season. And you have the third point, which is that there's a squad that has had to adapt to a new style of football mid-season. And there's so many examples you could pick from that, whether it be the defensive structure, whether it be the lack of a right winger. And as Chris has already said, you look at what Rangers had to bring off the bench today. there's not many options whatsoever. I think it's really limited what Van Bronckhorst has had to work with. But within all of that, this last month, I think, has been so important to show that the manager has, I think for the manager to show supporters that this is why you should buy in. I am really tactically astute, and I can go and learn about opponents and overcome them. I can take you this far in Europe, and I can change things in games, because how often has it been now? It was the Callum moving into a different position that effectively changed the game for Rangers today, because he got into a scoring opportunity. And I think time and again, whether it be substitutions, in-game alterations, Van Bronckhorst has made a difference. So that's why this month has been important, and why there's, aside from the league effectively, as you say, being lost today, I think there is still that optimism within the camp.
Yeah, I mean, Chris, undoubtedly frustration at how we've lost the league this season. I mean, I know it's not mathematically impossible yet, but as I said earlier on, you're looking at a collapse from Celtic that's probably going to be unlikely. If I look at the season with Alex Anderson, and he made a good point that that you can break the season into sort of chunks. That there's been no real continuity, so that there was that early stage of the season when we just never got going at all. A lot of draws, conceding the first goal every week for 6-7 weeks in a row. Then Gerrard goes, and then we get a Gio bounce. We're winning games, and then that goes, and then we've had injuries all season. You look at Hagi, Roof, Morelos, Hollander at the back. It's just been a right stop-start kind of a season, and it's undoubtedly. Don't get me wrong. I think Rangers need to look at themselves in terms of some of the draws, especially. I think have killed us. We've got the same amount of defeats as Celtic. It's the 8 draws that we've had this season that have ultimately killed us. But it has felt there's just no fluidity to the season, no consistency. It's just been stop-start.
It is quite remarkable having you just said all that, Colin, and I thought Josh summed it up really well as well. In a fortnight, we could win the Europa League.
Yeah, I know.
It would be the most Rangers thing to do. I don't think it's been that enjoyable a season. I've not really enjoyed. Obviously, it's been great going to the games, and professionally, it's been fine. But I don't think it's been that great a season to watch. A lot of the performances nowhere near the level. But you've then got great European moments like Dortmund. You'll remember forever, as Josh said, that night at Braga, Ibrox. The Red Star games were great. Hampden was great. If they go and win the Scottish Cup, that'll be great. Overall, it's just never really got going. It's never felt like this was a team that was going to build on last season. 55 should have been the closing of one chapter and the beginning of the next. It was meant to be, as Gerrard said in his Sky piece with Gary Neville last week, a fortnight ago. He wanted to go bigger and go again, and there's never really been that feeling that Rangers, we're going to go bigger and we're going to go again. It's almost like, well, we'll get through this one. Celtic aren't that good. They've got a manager nobody's ever heard of. They've got a bit of turmoil off the park. We'll be good enough. And that mentality catches up with you. If you don't build on success, you can quickly go back, and unfortunately Rangers have gone. I don't think they've gone backwards. It's almost been a season where they've stalled after progression under Gerrard, season after season, to finally then get 55. They had to build on that and they had to go again, and it's just not happened. But I say, in a fortnight we could be Europa League winners, and I think that would put a great shine on the season. But I don't think it masks some of the issues in terms of the squad profile, the contracts, some of the decisions that have been made, some of the things they've done off the pitch. I've got a huge issues with as well. So I think there's still questions for a lot of people to answer. A lot of people deserve answers on a range of issues of how things have happened this season. And even a Europa League win, as great as it would be, I don't think that should mask what has been a fairly poor campaign for Rangers.
Josh, I mean, in terms of that comment from Gerrard around, he wanted to go again, and I mean, he made a comment earlier on in the season, and it was the first sort of time I felt he was criticising the board. I mean, can you blame the board though? I think the board have been quite supportive building that team. Was it unrealistic, Steven Gerrard? Especially once Malmo went the way it did. was it unrealistic to expect the board to plough more money in again without him saying, right, okay, well, I'll let an Aribo go, or I'll let a Morelos go, or something like that? You know, the expectation to retain everything he had and to add quality to that again, was that unrealistic?
I think it's a good point, because obviously the board would have looked at it last season and said, right, Champions League this season, last summer against Malmo, the best way to get that in the short term is keep the squad together, add a few personnel and key personnel in different areas. And as we've seen, you know, John Lundstrom, I think, for free has been an excellent sign, and might have taken a bit of time, but you can see the idea that the board's had. And when Gerrard was kind of backing him in September and August, that's certainly been justified up to this point. But again, you can understand from the board's point of view, okay, we'll keep the squad together. We'll try and get a few of them sorted out on longer term deals. Hopefully they'll get Champions League in the summer of 2021. If they don't get Champions League in the summer of 2021, we have this, you know, apparent cash of pot of gold at the end of this season. There's 25 points in it. But as Chris said, I think when you rely on another team, and I think Rangers, you can only rely on yourself to win a league, and that's probably, broadly speaking, the mistake that was made. Rangers didn't strengthen enough, and it's an interesting discussion about this squad, because I think the Hampden game was so important, because if the squad had gone out in a whimper, it would have been such a shame for them to only go out with one trophy, because they've been a brilliant team in so many areas. They've given fans, I think, so many brilliant nights at Ibrox, and they've come so close on so many occasions. And I think it's important that they finish strong, even if that did mean a European run ending whenever it did in a Scottish Cup. That would at least be something compared to, you know, watching Celtic pick up a treble and being knocked out of Europe and having had the stalling season, as Chris mentioned. So, you know, you've also got the squad probably peaking, or having peaked last season, and now we see squad cycles, they kind of need 3 or 4 years. They need a bit of rejuvenation, and if you look at the spine of that squad, it's not been rejuvenated in 3 or 4 years. So it's a gamble, really, wasn't it? Because if they've got Champions League, if a couple of things had gone their way, you'd say, do you know what, brilliant to keep the squad together, to get that Champions League money. We can, you know, sell from a position of strength. Clubs will know we've got Champions League money. We can get a little bit more money for players. Maybe we'll get a couple of them on other contracts. But that's football. Just as Chris is saying, you know, a couple of results have kind of changed the mood around Van Bronckhorst. Some people will say, oh, that's very fickle, but that's football. It's dictated by little moments. If Sakala scores that goal today, instead of hitting the post, it's a win. It's so different. So it's all these things that, yes, I think the criticism is fair, because you can't rely on another team to go and win a league, but also it's a gamble, and the gamble could well have paid off. So you have to, I think, have that perspective as well.
In terms of next season, Chris, and I'm going a bit rogue with the agenda here, I'm just letting the conversation go, just in case you're looking at the agenda and going, where is it going with this? You know, sort of February, March time, you know, when things were going a bit south, I think a lot of supporters would have been thinking, well, do we trust Gio? And I still think there's a few out there that I'm not quite sure about him. But I think the last 5-6 weeks, you know, the European run, the performances against Celtic, the in-game decisions that he's made and that have changed games, and I really am starting to trust Gio. I didn't to start with. I genuinely had my fears about him. But recently, the last sort of 6 weeks, I would say, yeah, you're starting to see it now. You're starting to see, and I think the players are starting to react. Does that give you a bit of excitement in terms of, because I do think this team's getting broken up. You know, I don't think there's any doubt about that. I think a lot of these players won't be here next season. Does that give you a bit of hope for next season in terms of, you know, it'll be Gio's team then? You know, he'll have to go and get the recruitment right, bring the players in. He would hope he'll be able to do that. Does that give you hope for next season in terms of what he can do for the club?
I don't think I would have said that Celtic, Hampden and the Braga games have saved his job, because I don't think the board would have sacked him. I don't think we got to the stage where the board would have basically had to call it quits 6 months in. But if he'd lost at Hampden and lost to Braga, I think it was a long way back for him in the eyes of the fans. Almost irretrievable at that stage, having lost the league, lost at Parkhead. If he then went and lost the cup semi-final, Celtic probably gone and won a treble, knocked out against a Braga team that we all felt we should be beating. All of those things are on his head, and it's not a good record to have in a short space of time. Having got those results and having performed as well in those games since, I think he has earned back a bit of trust. I think he's earned he's earned the right to go and give it his own crack next season. He's earned the right to build his own squad, to have the appropriate backing from the board to go and bring in his players, and to be given the chance to really put his stamp on a squad and to put his style of football into action with his guys. I'm more in favour of him now than I was 6 weeks ago, but as Josh says, that's the fickle nature of football. In a couple of weeks' time, if he goes and loses the Scottish Cup final and Leipzig win 4-0 on Thursday night, it'll be the same questions then come back. But I think he's earned the right to go and give it a crack next season. I would hope that he's silenced some of the critics, won over a few of the doubters. But it's a huge summer he's got ahead of him. There's going to be a big overhaul of players. You look at McGregor probably retiring, Steve Davis sorts of doubts of his future. Arfield, Conor Goldson looks like he's away, and that's before you even start cherry picking the sellable assets to help fund the rebuilding job. So this squad is coming to the end of its cycle. It's how quickly can he build the next one. It took Gerrard 3 seasons to build a title-winning team. Gio probably doesn't have 3 seasons. Gerrard got that time because of where the club was when he came in. Gio, I think, doesn't get 3 years to go and build a title-winning team. He's probably got 1 season to have to come close, maybe win a couple of cups, but then doesn't start well the following season. People are saying, right, that's you, off you pop. He really has to get things right and get almost 95% of his decisions right over the course of the summer to really get Rangers motoring again.
Another man who's got a big summer coming up, Josh, surely Ross Wilson. A lot of supporters questioning some of his, especially the January window. You would have to say, has it really strengthened the team? Ramsey, there's been wee signs here and there, but he's obviously a great player, but in terms of his impact, it's probably not what we're looking for. Diallo, again, wee glimmers here and there, but I don't think any of the players that have come in January are necessarily bad players, but you would have to say that they've not had the impact that we were all hoping for. So with such a big rebuild coming up, and Gio's next on the line, if it doesn't go right, a huge amount of pressure on Ross Wilson to get this right.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's not really... his transfer record, I think, gets criticised a fair amount, and people will bring up all the names that he's brought in, but he's always been kind of bringing in, as we discussed a minute ago, to try and keep the crux of the squad together, not sell the biggest assets, and strengthen and piece together players like Scott Wright who you can pick up for free or a minimal fee. But this will be the first time that he's really had, I guess, real money to play with in terms of a transfer window. And I guess you have to look at, what he did in getting 16 million for Nathan Patterson. Looks in this current climate to be a good deal. Aside from pulling off a transfer like Ramsey, which you're right, Colin, it's not worked. I think you can say that. And I don't think that's through any ill will from Aaron Ramsey. I think you can see how committed he's been and how much he's bought into the club. I think, unfortunately for him, injuries always held him back somewhat in his career, and that's been the case with the latest one. Hopefully he can get back, and even for Thursday, which would be a great, I think, boost for everyone. But that was an impressive transfer, and I think showed how Wilson kind of utilises contacts to get that in. But it's a huge summer because you're right. Chris is right. Sorry, there's going to be a lot of players going. You're talking 4, 5, 6 before you talk about Kamara, Aribo, Kent, Morelos. You look at players like Kent, Morelos, Aribo. Can all 3 go in one window? Can you see any of them staying? Then you have to think, well, who do we build this squad around? Because if you look at that starting 11 today, I'm doing this off the top of my head, so it might be wrong, but in terms of players that will be in that starting 11 next season, for me, you've got Bassey, Tavernier, Lundstrom. We don't know if Kent's going to be there. We don't know if Aribo's going to be there. Do you build a team around Sakala, or is he just an asset? We don't know if Stephen Davis is going to be there. Probably not. Al McGregor's going. We've spoken about Borna Barisic. So it is a real summer of change, and there's a lot of pressure on to get it right. But I think what you need in these circumstances is for what Wilson and the club have spoken about for a long time, and what they spoke about when Van Bronckhorst came in, was kind of doing the work in the background. And when the pressure times comes, hopefully it should play out well because you've done the preparation. But you'll see this summer how how realistic that theory is.
Will do. And final point on today's game, guys, it wouldn't be an Old Firm game if there wasn't some form of controversy. Rangers issued a statement fairly quickly after the game. There's footage kicking about in social media, bottles getting thrown. The club have claimed that they're collating evidence regarding hate crimes. There was also footage of a Celtic fan mocking the Ibrox disaster. So Rangers have issued a statement saying we're disappointed with the police response after the Old Firm at Parkhead today. Our support was left unprotected as they were attacked by bottles and other missiles. Reports so far include injuries to elderly and disabled supporters. Furthermore, we are collating evidence of possible hate crimes which will be reported to Police Scotland as a matter of urgency. We intend to raise our concerns with Police Scotland and Celtic during the debrief. Celtic immediately retorted, as you would expect, saying, we are still working through recent events at Ibrox, including the assaults on our staff and members and supporters. It is extremely regrettable that, again, our supporters have been targeted with missiles, including bottles and seating, ripped from our seating deck, resulting in injury to fans and stewards. We will be liaising with relevant parties in order that a wide range of issues are fully addressed in the appropriate manner. Chris, it's all about tit for tat, really. I mean, the footage I seen today was pretty bad, and the most disturbing thing about it was there's police officers there. They don't do it. There's bottles getting lobbed, and they're just standing there watching it.
No matter what side of the football divide we're on, or no matter what side of the park you're standing on, anybody that's throwing bottles at opposition fans doesn't deserve to see another football game for a very, very long time. We had the incident at Ibrox a couple of weeks ago, rightly condemned, rightly dealt with. You can only hope that the authorities deal with this one in a timely and professional and proper manner. So anybody that thinks that's acceptable behaviour, no matter what game you're at, what stadium you're in, that's no way to behave. No, we can't have that in Scottish football. It's not good for the image of the game. It's certainly not good for the image of the clubs and respective supports. And we can only hope that nobody's actually suffered serious injury from it. Not the type of thing we want to see. Thankfully, not something that we see very often at Old Firm games. I'm not sure why it can kicked off today. Why this has been the incident that has been, but hopefully it's dealt with in a timely and strict manner.
Josh, it seems to be on an increase. Do you think that the current sort of allocation of tickets has got something to do with it? There's a very small amount of away supporters now. You can maybe argue that they're more vulnerable. I know there was instructions issued by the club to supporters that had tickets for today's game. They had to meet at the arena across the road at 10:30. They would be in the ground for like an hour and a half before kick-off. If you turned up late, then there was no guarantee you would get in time. And I remember reading the statement, I think, this is all a bit draconian for people attending a football match. So, I mean, we know that the sort of reasons behind why the allocation is why it is. But is that also having an impact? Because it does seem to be getting worse at this present moment in time.
Yeah, I don't know. I hadn't thought of that. But I just kind of echo what Chris says. I think in these situations, you just need respective clubs to deal with it and stamp it out quickly, because people see if these things are stamped out quickly, I think that hopefully stops future actions. So I think Chris put it very well. So I'll just echo his thoughts, and maybe that is an impact on what's happening, Colin. But certainly, you don't want to see it. You don't have to be talking about it after a game. And hopefully it's dealt with swiftly, and that stops future incidents from happening as well.
Going back to the previous episodes at Ibrox, Chris, final point in this, Celtic issued a statement quite correctly, very quickly after the game. A member of the staff was at the bottle. There was obviously the bottle that was chucked on the park, Joe Hart as well. Rangers didn't retort. They'd simply identified individuals been arrested. I think he was faring up round about my area, actually. I think he was for Grangemouth. But this, for Rangers to come out today and say that they've got concerns about a number of incidents, and for Celtic to kind of pettily just point to the previous incidents, I thought that was poor form.
I don't quite get why Celtic had felt that they had to bring that into it. As you said right at the start, Colin, it's a bit tit for tat. Just because there was an incident at Ibrox that doesn't have any bearing on the incident at Parkhead. The incidents at Parkhead are serious and regrettable in their own right. Again, whether it's Rangers to Celtic or Celtic to Rangers, doesn't matter who started it. The incidents have to be dealt with appropriately by the clubs, by the police. I'm sure the SFA and the SPFL will have a look at it as well. What happened at Ibrox a couple of weeks ago had no bearing on that incident and should have no bearing on how those incidents today are dealt with. So I'm not. It seemed a bit petty and a bit point scoring from Celtic if they say, "Well, you started it." Well, it doesn't really matter who starts it. It's about how this actually comes to an end and how we can ensure this type of thing doesn't happen again, because it's not something we want to see in the game. It's not something that the Old Firm derby needs. And it would be easy for Celtic just to come out and condemn whatever actions that the Rangers fans, or they think the Rangers fans have committed, whatever their side of it is. They're perfectly entitled to come out and make that point, just as Rangers did in their statement. There was no need for Celtic, I don't think, to bring the Ibrox incidents back into it when that's being dealt with at present.
Somebody would say it was a bit whataboutery, but we'll not go into that at the moment. Right, on to Thursday night, guys. Josh, a huge night. Arguably, I've been to some big Champions League nights in my time, Leeds United and Parma and all these kind of things. The thought of going to Ibrox on Thursday night and then at the end of that game, Rangers will be in a European final. I can't think of any bigger game that I've been at Ibrox. I have to say the prospect of it is mouthwatering. It's just going to be massive. And I know we've got issues in terms of injuries and stuff like that. But if you were offered this opportunity at any point, a semi-final at home, if you win it, you're in the final of a European competition. It doesn't get any better than that.
No, my better half isn't that clued up on football matters, and she said to me, because I said to her this, I was speaking to her about it, it's the biggest game in however long, whatever, and she keeps saying to me, you said that about 3 times in the last month. But there is that feel with these European nights. Dortmund, wow, a chance to knock out Dortmund, get to a stage further, amazing. Then you get Red Star and you think, okay, it's a realistic pathway forwards. Braga again, and now I think you're completely right, Colin. The prospect of I'm feeling it being played is very appealing at full time, and I think would just kind of top all the post-match scenes that we've seen this past year. But I agree with Chris that when you've not got a goal scorer, it's really difficult when you need to go and score 2 goals. And it's not as if Rangers have a midfield that's known for its goal scoring ability, but equally Rangers are not supposed to be at this stage. I think there's been a lot of factors that carried Rangers to this stage, the crowd and the momentum behind the team certainly being 2. And also, why not? The squads haven't got to this stage of the competition by thinking we maybe we won't get into the next round. And I think you've seen that there was almost a quiet confidence with Van Bronckhorst. Me and Chris were there at the press conference on a Thursday night, and I don't know what you thought, Chris, but I kind of thought there was a little bit of a quiet confidence about him, a little bit of a pleased to get out of that arena with a 1-goal deficit, because they're a seriously good team. And I did a lot of reading about them before that game, and their manager Tedesco has changed them into a really good possession dominant team in the last 6 months. And it's set up, if Rangers go and get the first goal without there being away goals, you can turn it into kind of a bit of a score-off. James Tavernier at home in the Europa League always scores, so why not? I think everyone's looking forward to it, and you're right, the prospect of Rangers getting into European final on Thursday is quite crazy, but it's the stage we're at, so you might as well go and enjoy it. That's
it, Chris. That's possibly the best way to finish it with the question, why not? I know we have injuries. We're hoping to have Roof and Ramsey back to improve the forward line and the options in terms of from an attacking sense. But why not? Because this team has defied the odds time after time after time. It seems to me since they put that camera on the top of the club deck that scoots across, that seems to have been the omen that, every home game, I'm always at the games, obviously, but because I'm that hyper when I come back, I always rewatch the full 90 minutes, and you're waiting to see that view in the club deck, the camera. So yeah, as Joshua says, why not? Because this group have shown, incredible resilience and character and belief to get to this stage. I think putting out Dortmund alone was superb. So why not?
it's the type of night that sums up why we all love football. If this game doesn't get you, it doesn't get you going. If you're a player and this game doesn't get you going, you're at the wrong team. You're supporting the wrong club. This is what Rangers are all about. Scottish clubs are not supposed to get to this stage of European competition. You look at how UEFA are trying to manufacture competitions. It's to keep clubs like Rangers out from this stage. We're not meant to be here. We are very much gate crashing the party. Hopefully we can go and gate crash it and come back with something nice and shiny and from Seville. It would be a wonderful achievement to get there, and very different. Also remember that night in Fiorentina, but the Ibrox game was a bit of a non-event. I can't really remember much about the Ibrox game apart from the scoreline. It was watching that game in Fiorentina that brings back all the memories. To actually be at one and to have the 50,000 crowd, to have the music, to have the Ibrox roar. There's been times over the season you've literally felt the stadium shake as on the gantry as it's bouncing after goals or after some of the wins. It's just a wonderful night to be involved in, and I just can't wait for kick off, and fingers crossed we can do the business.
Yeah, hope so. Right, guys, on that, I'm just looking at the time. That's probably perfect timing there. Got through everything. So a big thanks to Chris and to Joshua for their contributions tonight, and for working with an amateur like myself, two solid professionals coming in and helping me out there. Right, so that's all for this week's show. As we were live tonight, guys. We were live on the Sunday night. The show will be available to download and stream on a variety of platforms from tomorrow, including Acast, iTunes, YouTube, Castbox, Stitcher and Spotify. We'll have a preview show out on Wednesday night, hopefully, and obviously we'll have another show out on Friday looking at everything, and the show next Sunday as well. In the meantime, get yourself onto the Gersnet website and forums at www.gersnet.co.uk. Guys, it's going to be a huge week this week. Obviously, it looks like the league's gone. Unfortunately, that's just the way it goes. We're still the better team, though. Don't forget that. But it's a huge week this week, a huge night coming up on Thursday. A real opportunity to make some history, to get to a European final. And of all the places that we could possibly win it, it could be Seville. You know, that would be pretty special. So enjoy your week, enjoy your Thursday night. Hopefully we'll get through. And until next time, bye for now.